Are you ready for bed? Should I tell you a story? Okay, this story is called Eden, the boy who climbed up the magic slide. Once upon a time, there was a little boy called Eden, and he lived in a very nice house with his two sisters, Edithina and Sabrina. Sabrina was the oldest one, and she was in grade 2. And Edithina, well, she was still in kindergarten. And Eden was just a baby boy, but he was starting to crawl around and to pull himself up and to be as adventurous and curious as his two sisters. Now, in the living room in this wonderful little house, there was a magic slide. It was yellow and blue and red and green. And I think it was a little Tykes or something like that. And it was as big as his big sister and about as wide as his little sister if you laid her on the ground. And the one thing that Eden didn't know yet, because he was just still a baby, was that this slide was a magic slide. One Christmas day, about 8 years ago, when they lived in a very different house, Mummy and Daddy woke up to find outside in the garden, all ready made, a brand new plastic slide. "Where did that come from?" said Daddy. "I have no idea," said Mummy. "Maybe Grandpa sent it over from England." "Well, what's it doing fully made in the garden on Christmas Day? It reminds me when I was a little kid, and we would go downstairs to open the presents, and there was always something ready-made, like a big Scalextrics or BMX bike." "Well, it's got to be ours because it's in our garden," said Mummy. And so Daddy carried Sabrina, who was just a baby then, outside to play on the slide. They brought the slide in and cleaned up the bottom because it was a bit dirty from the grass, and they put it in the living room, and Sabrina loved the slide. And when her sister came along, Edithina, she adored the slide as well. And they found out in their own time about the magic that lay within the slide and the special way that you had to know about it. That special way was you had to climb up the slide and go and stand on the top. And so, this little boy, Eden, was at that stage where he was gliding around the sofas, taking his first steps, pulling himself up onto the bottom of the slide. And then one day, he was feeling very adventurous, and he put his knee up, and he reached up with his little hands and pulled, but fell flat on his bum. That day he cried because his bum hurt. And the next day, although he couldn't speak, I'm sure he had some determination, because he crawled across to the slide and pulled himself up again. This time he reached further with his hand, and his knee got a good grip. And he pulled, and he got his other hand on the other side, and he pulled, and eventually his two little knees were resting at the top of the slide, and his hands were gripping each side. Now he was feeling a bit unsure of himself, because he turned his head slightly and he was about 50 centimeters or a foot or something off the ground, which was the first time for him, and he was on a bit of plastic, not the nice sofa. There was no turning back, and so he looked up the blue slide, up to the top, where the yellow base was, and he pushed and he pulled and he reached up, and his feet, being little tiny feet, gripped the plastic quite well, and he crawled up, and his knees and his feet, and pulled and pulled. Even he got his cheeks involved on his face, and he gritted his gums and pulled, and eventually he got to the top, and he pulled himself and sat down right at the top of the slide, and he looked around the living room as if he was on top of Mount Everest, seeing everything for the first time. He didn't recognize the place he'd been spending on the floor for the last 8 months. It was a different world. And that's not even the beginning, because as he'd taken in all the new scenery, and he could actually see out of the apartment window from on top of the slide, and all the cars down below, there was a tap on his shoulder. "I see you've made it," said the voice. "He certainly has. It was a bit quicker than his sister's," said the other voice. And Eden turned his head, and there, on top of the slide, was Mickey and Minnie Mouse, the dolls that the sisters had placed there just the day before. "Come on, come over here so you don't fall down the slide and miss out on all this magic," said Mickey Mouse. And Mickey and Minnie held Eden's hand and scooched his bum over to the middle of the top of the slide. Eden, although he couldn't speak, could communicate in this story anyways. And Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse started to tell him about all the magic things about the slide. Eden was absolutely blown away. "What's going on?" he thought. "I've seen Daddy pretend that he was Mickey Mouse and wave the doll's arms and move its head around his neck. But this is something different. This is real." And so Eden sat there, and Minnie Mouse took him by the hand and said, "Come on, stand up, let's go." "Where are we going to?" "Well, now that's the magic thing. Anywhere you want to. As soon as you step off this slide, this side, you will become a boy or a man." And so Eden stood up, and holding Minnie's hands, took his first steps off the back of the slide. He didn't feel scared as he stepped off into the air, and then whoosh, he vanished. Minnie and Eden opened their eyes, and they were in the jungle, and Eden looked down at his strong arms and legs and the sword in his hand, and looked forward, and there was a terrible cry. "What's that?" said Eden. "That's the princess," said Minnie Mouse. "Let's go this way." I think that's all I've got for today. I think it was a bit better last time I thought about it. But anyway, okay. Let's continue this next time. Eden, the boy who climbed up the magic slide,